9-50 is the record of the Colorado Rockies. 9-50. Now, you want to mention historically bad? It's almost like we're a little numb to the saying because we heard it from the White Sox all last year, who won 41 games last year. 41 games they won last year. The Rockies, they're 27 games back. It's June 2nd. And if you want to compare it to the aforementioned White Sox of last year, for the White Sox to get 50 losses, they had 17 wins. They nearly double where the Rockies are at. Historically horrendous, historically awful. And it got me thinking because not only I checked the attendance is actually pretty good at Coors Field, which is unfortunate because it's given the fans false hope that, they're still making money with that godforsaken team. But 9-50, 27 games back, you almost think as a fan of that team, as a fan of if you're a Denver fan, that is the worst sport, the worst league to be awful in. Because it doesn't necessarily provide the sense of hope that is associated with the number one overall pick, and then you don't even get a guarantee of that in the NBA, or the number one overall pick, which you can get a guarantee of in the NFL. Even hockey, getting the number one overall pick. You could have a guy who comes in immediately and makes a difference. Baseball, we're going to be 9-50. We're going to enter ourselves into a lottery where the A's were the top lottery team for 3 years in a row. They did not get the number one overall pick. And you're picking 5 or 6. You get a guy who's, 19 years old out of high school, or you get a guy who's fresh out of college, and then you got to wait until they're done with the minor league circuit, and then you'll call them up 3-4 years down the line. If they're fast tracked, you'll see them in 2 or 3. If you're a Denver fan, if you're a Colorado Rockies fan, you have a historically bad team. I don't know if there's a worse sport to be bad in than the MLB.
There's no hiding. There's so many games where if you're a terrible team, it's going to be on display, 8 times a week. How many games do we play within the MLB every single week on a team? Colin, they've lost an extraordinary amount of games, but what makes this more alarming to me, they haven't won a series all year. Let me say that again. They have not won a series all year. I understand bad teams. I understand the pitching staff. To go into the numbers, the guys who have pitched 50 innings plus all have over 5.4 ERAs, some in the 7s. This is a team that is not a major league team. They have about 3 major leaguers on the roster. One of them can't stay healthy, and they just fired their manager after he let a bullpen pitcher get about 9 earned in a single inning. Oh, and by the way, Bud Black was there for like 7 years.
Yeah, 8 years, I believe. Yeah,
he was there for an extraordinary amount of time. The last time the Rockies went to the playoffs was 2018. I'm with you. There's no hiding in baseball if you're a terrible team. I feel bad for Rocky fans because it's just one of those teams where you...
Where do you look? Where do you even look?
Where do you go to get better? But at the same time, Kyle, there's the stigmatism of, the Rockies, they stink. You know what I mean? It's one of those teams. Like, we all know the teams in basketball. No offense, Colin, your Hornets. Oh, they stink. You know what I mean? They're known as a bad team. In the NFL, you used to have the Lions, the likes of the Browns. But in the MLB, the Rockies have become one of those teams of, they stink. And it's hard to wipe away that stigmatism.
With historically bad teams, like it's fascinating to think about because Mike mentions like the sort of the rebound that is associated with a historically bad season. It's almost like either everybody's flushed out and you got a brand new, and this is in basketball, this is in football, this is in hockey. In a lot of ways, people are flushed out. General managers are flushed out. Coaches or managers are flushed out. Baseball's not necessarily the same. Baseball, teams move on from their managers when something is not going on in the middle of the season. They don't necessarily wait to the conclusion of an awful season. They'll make the decision early. They hire internally a lot. But if the Browns are 0-16, you know that a couple things. Number one, they're going to have the number one overall pick. They're going to have the 33rd pick, which is essentially a first rounder. They're going to move on from their coach. They're going to bring in somebody new. They're going to move on. They're going to figure out the general manager. When the Jags went 1-15, they got rid of their coach. They got a new general manager. They figured that out from there. That is what they do. That's what teams do. That's what awful teams do. The Hornets did that. The lottery did not do them any justice, but the 76ers had the process. They all of a sudden, now teams have money to spend. All right, well, they're terrible. Now they could allocate resources in a different direction. The Rockies don't do that because there is no guarantee of a high draft pick that is going to be impactful in the next 4 years. And there is no guarantee of them spending any money.
Yep.
That's where this is the worst sport, by and large, by a long shot.
Yep.
And this is 9-50 is worse than 1-15 or 1-16. 9-50 to this point has got to be worse than winning 18 games in an 82-game season. It's worse.
It is.
Because the element of randomness, it's harder to lose that many games than it is to win 15. It's more difficult to lose 50 games in your first 60 than it is to squeak away 15 of your and go 15-45.
I broke it down into 3 things: draft, cap, and culture. Now, from what I heard about the Rocky ownership, Kyle, it's a bit of a mom and pop shop kind of thing. They didn't want to get rid of Ryan McMahon, or rather, there were talks about getting rid of Ryan McMahon at previous trade deadlines and offseason.
It's very internal there.
Exactly. And they go, oh, well, the thought process there was, gosh, we love him. You know, the ownership loves the McMahons and his family, whatever. Kyle, this is a business, brother. I understand it's tough sometimes having to let go of players you really like, but draft, cap, and culture in the MLB. If you draft a player within the MLB, not every day they're Juan Soto's, even a guy who's coming up right now, Jack Caglione, and he's still got to have success.
Jackson Holiday hasn't worked out
Exactly.
yet.
It's usually 3 to 4 years until you see draft picks. Okay.
Yeah, Skeens doesn't grow on trees.
No. The cap, Kyle. You're spending a ton of money. Listen, the Dodgers spend money. You know the teams that spend money. This is a team that doesn't spend money. And then culture. What I brought up to you of the Rockies are a team that have a stigmatism of being one of the worst teams and a bunch of losers.
And people don't want to play there.
Correct.
So if people don't want to play there, it's not a good franchise to play for.
Especially pitchers.
They don't pay you, and they don't necessarily develop studs that they could trade for to and from consistently. The MLB is suited for the rich to stay rich and for the poor to stay poor. And the Rockies at 9-50, the problem is it's almost so bad, it's like a car crash. You have to watch it. Right. You have to see it. That was what the White Sox were last year. People were strolling down to the south side of Chicago just to get a glimpse. Is this real? 120 losses? Is this possible?
But to not win a series as well, that's insanity. That's
3 wins in a month.
That's like to the point of did you even do the homework, right? If you're the general manager and the ownership of this team, I don't think in their wildest dreams they thought it'd be this bad. But with that pitching staff and with that lineup, we should have saw the writing on the wall here.
It's
Colin, it's so bad.
Baseball is hand in hand with randomness. In order to be great, to win 22 in a row, to win 20 in a row, it's almost random. It's like hitting a lottery ticket because even the Dodgers lose. Even the Yankees lose. Even the White Sox win. Mm-hmm. The White Sox, I believe, won on a 3-game winning streak last year just out of nowhere. It happens. But to be this consistently awful through basically 2.5 months, it's like the White Sox were 15-50 or 17-50. The Rockies are 9-50. They had double the amount of wins essentially through this point of the season, unless the Rockies go on an 8-game winning streak. And you could bring up schedule, you could bring up the NL, you could bring up that brutal division they play in, but there is not even a glimmer of hope anywhere.
Yeah.
And that is where baseball has a problem. This is not necessarily a reflection of baseball. I don't want to make it about, they need a salary cap. This is not about that. This is just more about how the game is built, that the god-awful teams, you have to be a true fan to gut through those times and stick it out 3 years from now and see if they're any good.
It's been recent, too. The 2024 White Sox, obviously, horrifically bad. Even the 2019 Detroit Tigers, horrifically bad. Now, the worst team of all time was the Cleveland Spiders at 20 wins and 134 losses. Colin, let me ask you this. It is June the 2nd, 2025. In baseball, I have a term. The June Blues. How bad are the June Blues going to get for the Colorado Rockies? Are we going to see someone compete for the 20 and 134th season that we saw from the 18, let me say this again, 1899 Cleveland Spiders?
Yeah,
20 wins.
And the funny part is, it's not like